What's up, everybody? This is Illiterate. This week we are covering Pinocchio. My name is Evan. I just checked out the new Guillermo del Toro film on Netflix. I'm hanging out with my buddy Taylor.
Hello, I looked into the origins of the puppet boy.
We're in a blessed year. A blessed year. Count them, two major Pinocchio adaptations have hit massive platforms this year, the latter of which just released on December 9th, Guillermo del Toro at the helm. I just checked out that whole one. I did also go and check out the Disney Plus version with Tom Hanks. My God, I'm really interested to get to the bottom of this. It's, given this some real scrutiny and taking it a little more serious. It is serious. I
It's
revisiting the
not a kid's,
themes. Really, revisiting these themes. I'm thinking about what age is this appropriate? Not that this isn't age appropriate for children or something, but it is a little, we're talking about mortality for real in its face. So let's go on the journey. I'm excited.
Yeah. 60-ish films total ever made. It's hugely adapted as a property.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So it makes sense. God, we'd have two in a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then on the literary side, I did not realize this is the third most translated literary work ever. It goes the Bible, then The Little Prince, and then
You are
Pinocchio.
kidding.
No.
God. I
But,
also forgot that this is
yeah.
where like the Disney twinkle that is on all of the intro
The
logos.
music,
and
yeah.
This is
The song.
This is it. That started the fairy is singing it, and I go, oh my God, this is it.
That's their theme. That's where they got it
totally,
from. Yeah.
completely forgot.
Well, just as a fun little beginning side note, I looked into that too. That song is a Christmas song in the Nordic countries, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Norway.
You
They
don't say.
they translated it into their languages, but it is a not traditional, but it is a popular song that plays around Christmas in that part of the
Wonderful.
world, which I had no knowledge of. It's kind of funny.
None.
That
That's incredible.
Yeah, because it's like the Star of Bethlehem or it can have some sort of
Yeah.
Christian allegory to it, but
Love
they
that.
got their own versions. Yeah. So it carries more weight.
Yeah, I'm the entire time looking at the two versions, realizing, oh yeah, this is a huge part of Disney. Wait, this is like backbone Disney. This is core Disney.
Yeah. And then with that, like all the different things that it's done for people, I won't get into all of them, but the core story itself is almost this uber myth story. You could take it from ideological, anthropological, psychoanalytical, Freudian readings, even a Christian reading. Geppetto is the Italian derivation for Joseph, who is also a carpenter who has a son. Blue is the Virgin Mary color, giving life.
Oh my gosh.
Resurrecting, everything
God.
like that. So people take the story because it is so loose and has so many different symbolisms that you wanted to take. Yeah.
Watching Guillermo's, I was also going like, this is like two steps away from Frankenstein.
Oh yeah. So
in a way, in terms of wanting a creature, animating a creature, and at a point the society does not accept him, and so God, this is right there parallel with it.
Oh, exactly. The way he described it, a child thrown into the real world, brought to life by a father who expects them to figure out morals, ethics, what makes something a human. Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, you got there before I could. That's what he's all about. Yeah, if you think of it as a scientist monster creation, it's right there in Del Toro's
It's right
interest.
there. It's really close. We're just like a little bit of a spill, and whoops, scientist monster.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Del Toro even said that he saw the Disney film at an early age. He said it's one of the scariest films he's ever seen. And he's
horrified me. Yeah, that definitely came up. Absolutely. We, in particular, as I said, I didn't watch the entire Disney Plus version, but one sequence that we did seek out in particular was the donkey transformation sequence, and it's just as horrifying. I think they're pulling shots right out of it. It's grotesque and horrible.
Yeah, it's is it even a kid's, it doesn't feel like a kid's thing. Why would Disney
Right.
pick this up in the first place.
And so when we went back to that one after checking out Guillermo's, and so while Guillermo's, I'm like, okay, so what at what age would a kid be? Can we really, okay, we're going to talk to the spirit of death in another
Yeah.
realm, and talking about the weight of mortality. That's a bit more on the nose, way more on the nose than the Disney version. So I'm like, okay, I'm willing to go there, but now I'm trying to think if we're talking about a 4 or 5 year old kid. And now are we talking about a 6 year old kid? You know what I mean? I'm trying to understand.
Yeah. Well, let's jump to we'll start with in the original sense, what the original was and did and what it was for,
Please
and then maybe
give
some of
me
the
some
historical
ground to stand
bases.
on, Taylor. I need it.
Yeah. The guy who wrote it, Carlo Lorenzini, which then his writer
Carlo,
yeah, his writer's name Collodi, or I don't know how to pronounce that properly in Italian, but,
excuse us.
uh, yeah, he
Carlo, I was beautiful that they did take that as the name of Geppetto's lost son.
oh, there you go.
Yeah, that struck us immediately when the credits rolled. We were looking out for just who the author was, and we went, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, wink and a nod there. The dead son grief angle isn't there in the original story. I think that was
No,
even not a big part of other adaptations, just
really.
the modern Disney one, live
Oh my
action,
gosh,
they bring that in, but that's not a part of it.
I'm gripped.
Um, yeah,
Now I have no
the
idea what
yeah.
it's going to be about.
So this guy Carlo was originally employed in the context of this to translate fairy tales. This is 1875
Okay.
for this publisher, and he does a good job of it. And so they ask him, "Hey, can you write some straight up Italian ones, not translating
Okay.
French or
Yeah.
German? Hopefully throw in some good morals. This is for kids." And so this becomes the story of a marionette in 1881,
Hmm.
serialized in a newspaper, and then becomes the whole they package them together in 83. But
Hmm.
the big difference that then Disney even eschews, which messes with people's perceptions of the whole thing, is Pinocchio is a little pill, like, he's a little imp. He's he has no he's like, if Frankenstein started immediately destroying everything, he has to make the complete
Mm,
jump from, "You're a disaster," to, "Hey, maybe have some sense." And,
right. It's like
so
in
yeah.
Fantasia trying to teach the teapot,
Right.
how to calm down.
Or the
Um,
yeah, the brooms and the yeah,
yeah,
whatever. So it's like, upon being born, Pinocchio immediately laughs in Geppetto's face and steals his wig and is causing mayhem.
that's definitely ringing true in the Guillermo version.
Right.
I think they definitely lean on elements of that.
More the wacky because Disney didn't they had a version of that and they're like, "This isn't we want him to be more naive, but and playful and fun, but
They
more."
want you to love Pinocchio. And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
Guillermo's, you will, but right off the bat, it's kind of terrifying, and he's like doesn't know the consequences of anything. And
yeah,
so Geppetto is like absolutely up over his head. And
exactly,
I
yeah.
loved how much they were letting that breathe and hearing that this is actually a lot of the thrust of the original, the energy of the Pinocchio character. I actually really like that they have so much of that on the front end of Guillermo's version.
Definitely. I don't know if they have this because this is also on the front end. This cricket, who's not named Jiminy, but Cricket, comes and tells him about, "Hey, here's
Yes.
disobedience. Here's what not to do." And he smashes it with a hammer and kills it.
Go. No,
Gone.
he kills it. My gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
And that's
no,
it.
no, well,
He cut
the
yeah.
cricket is definitely still, present. It's not Jiminy, it is just a cricket,
Yeah.
and they give it a bit of a different, backstory. He's kind of like a listful writer, and so he, like, learns, like, the value of things by watching this story unfold
I
and
see.
then being part of it, eventually. So gosh, I had no idea he was just
So
murdered brutally.
that's part of his, yeah, his impishness is just, "Hey, don't
Oh god.
smush, gone, dead."
No.
And, I won't get into all of it because it's this first part is 15 chapters, but in the end, the cat and the
Lord.
fox, who are not good influences, he gets caught up with them. They string him up from a tree by a noose, and he's choking,
Mm.
and that's the end. Dead.
Huh?
It's a tragedy. It's like, "Don't
Oh my god.
disobey and be churlish, or this will
Oh,
happen.
Pinocchio,
Goodbye."
no. Not
The
Pinocchio. He got hung to
Yeah,
death and died.
and that's it. This did not go over well with the publisher who's like, "That's
There's
it?
gotta
That's
be a
what you."
part 2, and
Yeah. So
and
yeah, yeah. So months and months later is, chapter 16, hot off the press, and goes to chapter 36, but this is the redemption, and the fairy is in there, and, by the end,
Ah, here we
turns him
go.
into a real boy, and so,
Mm,
in a way, thematically balances the paternal with Geppetto, and then this maternal is the second
mm,
half of this
mm.
story. So, kind of interesting that that's not all the
Yes.
rigmarole, but it's episodic, it's wacky adventures every chapter, and eventually he's, "Oh,
I love that he was
I'm
like, "And that's the end," and people are,
lear"
like, looking at him like, "Are you serious?"
Carlo. Go back to
Carlo.
translating, yeah, yeah.
That's incredible, that's incredible. Because I was like, I was sure, I was gonna hear about the backstory of some tragic accident and a boy and,
Mhm.
but no, none of it. That's all Disneyfied. Hey,
Mhm.
when it works, it works. I can't blame Disney, but that this is I'm fascinated. This is amazing. This is
Yeah.
wonderful.
Well, I like you said, you'd think sometimes Dr. Seuss, whoever, were like, "Oh, this is their childhood, this is their upbringing." Not so with Carlo. If you want,
Hmm.
we can talk about why the heck he's doing this. Reminded me, like, last week with the Charles Dickens stuff, where it's
Yeah.
like something's going on in Italy, and this
Yes.
is what he
Yes.
is.
The socioeconomic factors.
Yeah, which is kind of, I don't know if you wanna speak to, like, Guillermo does it a bit in this. It's not, because this is 70s Italy versus 1930s is where he sets it,
Oh
right?
yeah, that's some pretty direct allusions to the Nazis, making no
Right.
no real qualms about that. That's They might as well. I mean, they get so close. There were almost aspects about it where they're not having like the actual iconography in it, but there's other things that are so identical that they could have sidestepped some of that too, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost ringing a little too close.
Where it's like, "This
I'm
is
like, "I get it.
Mussolini."
No, I
Yeah.
get it." Yeah, no, exactly, exactly, exactly. It does actually arise to that occasion. It definitely has those elements, and I was wondering if that would be part of this story too, but it does I don't know that, in terms of, Nazis, I think
It's a little too early
it's a little
historically.
too early.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, so but that's where Guillermo's is set. So I was definitely interested in that aspect of it. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty interested to hear exactly what they were speaking to in the original.
Yeah, so what has just happened 10 years previous is the unification of Italy, which I can't get into the politics of that because I
There's
could
another
not
podcast for
put it.
that.
Yeah, yeah, somewhere else. But my stupid explanation is consolidating lots of different states on the Italian peninsula into a single state in 1861, the Kingdom of Italy, and the capital
Mm,
is Rome
mm,
and all of that. And I couldn't even tell you also what sides or what angles Carlo was or was not interested in relation to this, but he was a
mhm,
journalist and he was writing satirical newspapers that got censored and was in the political scene
mm.
talking about these topics, which again reminds me of Dickens and caring
Yeah,
about
yeah,
the state of his country. And so
definitely.
he forego this is then the jump where he says, "Well, I'm gonna get out of this fairy tales, children's stuff, start translating." He gets at, but it's interesting that he knows the, I don't know, thematic interests of the time to make an allegory of. He's
Yes,
not
yes,
blind to
yes.
that. But I also thought I didn't realize that this is in the start of the golden age of children's literature,
Mm.
and a concept that I didn't even think about was just even the concept of childhood being a
Mm.
thing that came about in the 1700s. Like, oh, maybe we should do things differently for kids versus like I don't know
So maybe
because I don't like
progression is like its own track, and then there's another track for once you get to that level. It's almost
yeah.
like. You're not an adult when you are born.
Yeah, or it's the tabula rasa, blank slate, so we've gotta give them exactly everything that they need, which comes from the fairy tale morals, didactic, educational
Mhm.
versus, "Hey, maybe this can just be loony, or this can just be
Mhm,
something for
mhm.
kids to not have their adult parents or guardians reading to them that is teaching them a lesson or I don't know.
Right.
I just never thought about that where it's like, "Oh, this is also why this booms and becomes popular is because it's a 36 chapter thing for kids where there is a moral element to it, but he's 10 years after Alice in Wonderland, but then
Mm.
after him comes Treasure Island and Jungle Book and Peter Pan and Little Women across
Oh my
the pond,
gosh,
so it's,
yes.
that's very shortly
I
after in the
see,
next
I
20 years or
see.
so, and you wouldn't think of those as purely moralistic fairy tale type stories, so he's right in that, sweet spot where it's a little bit
Wow,
that and a
okay.
little bit not. So, makes sense historically why.
Well, I'm
But,
starting to really
yeah.
separate the Disney Pinocchio and Pinocchio writ large.
Right, right, right.
Separate things, and this is I'm definitely I think I just assumed, and even after watching parts of the Disney version today, seeing how much of that version is intrinsic to the entity of Disney.
Mhm.
This is gosh, Disney is late in the game when it comes to this
Yeah,
property. Wow. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to pull off is pull out of this is that the Italy part of the intrinsic creation of this is kind of just overwritten later on. So let's get this socioeconomic bit out because this is really the kernel that I think is everybody just forgets about this.
Right, so we've got unification that's just happened, and the adults are in tumult, and the country itself is is
Nice.
is having a major shift and reorganizing. In the
Hmm.
novel, Pinocchio is very much punished for disobeying. I mean, God, he gets hanged halfway through, and so it's kind of interesting that
The end. What?
yeah, in Del Toro's, it's not as much like, "Hey, this is follow the rules and you're gonna or else," it's kind of like
Right.
find your it's a different take on it for sure, but in this time, the mad and wacky mishaps show, "Hey, you're lost and powerless in a grown-up land." That's for the kids side of things,
Hmm.
to understand, but from the political and social side, at the time of the writing, there was a big problem with these naive peasants from the country venturing into ridiculous situations because of industrialization happening at the same time and needing labor in cities and the the youth of the time having these
Just an
decisions to
ignorant
make.
just an
Yeah,
ignorant little Pinocchio walking himself right into a meat grinder because it's the Industrial
exactly.
Revolution.
Yeah, or
God, what a
emigrating to other
hardship.
countries, flight out of Italy, and it's like, well, we need people with strong
Right.
moral fiber not rejecting their responsibilities, and so that's a call to arms for the young people of Italy. That's all the donkey stuff in Pleasure Island or Toyland. It's like, if you don't go to school, you're gonna be doing backbreaking labor, and people are gonna be taking advantage of you. You're a donkey, you're stupid. Like, get an
Lord.
education, there's
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
there's strong, strong cultural elements to it that were not lost in the 1870s
That
on
donkey
yeah.
you getting taken advantage of angle, it stings. You got played, and now you're a donkey.
Yeah,
Oh god.
yeah, so that I mean, what also works with it, though, is the epic hero mythological death, rebirth, metamorphosis, journey to the underworld, the belly of the beast, whale,
Right.
he knows how to also put a veneer of this story has been told by Dante and Homer
Yes.
and other ancient myths that fit with it. So it's wild that it has all of that.
Lord. Oh
It
my
has what it
god.
needs for the time. It has a big uber myth structure, and it's also the beginning of children's literature
Wow.
too. So why it is number 3 translated of all
Oh my
time.
god.
Uh,
And so just there so I'm having my own journey here and I want to pull it out and put a period on it. My own revelation of when we say Pinocchio is the third most copied text on the planet, that iteration, that initial iteration of this property, that means nothing to do with Disney. And that's really fascinating to me. That generally what I accept of in my mind, the zeitgeist of Pinocchio and Geppetto that rushes to my mind, that has nothing to do with really how big this character is and how much is even in this story. And so it's now nice to see all of the things that Disney ignored still having a place to get seen. And now we're seeing Guillermo's version, and Guillermo's version is able to really delve deep on all of those other elements that didn't make it into the Disney version.
Well, and you're exactly right. I started picking up on that, looking into this stuff, and then made me think about, so why not make it in Italy, or what was Italy doing with this, or what else was
Right.
being being made with this? And it's also intertwined with Disney's thing. There is a film, Lost, called The Adventures of
No.
Pinocchio, and this
No.
was the first cell-drawn animated feature film. This is before Snow White. This is before Disney starts his whole
Mm.
big
Oh my
feature
gosh.
thing.
Not the first time we've talked about lost films.
Yeah, yeah. So, there are some still frames, I'll post a link to some stuff, but they basically exhausted the finances, but there was allegedly 50 to 150,000 drawings, 2,500 feet of film, 105 minutes of this thing that
Oh my
was
gosh.
completely drawn. And from what I could tell, this is also lost. The history is lost to history. So take this with some
Mm.
salt. But Walt Disney had acquired the rights. So basically, this is not in the public domain yet. So these people that have it.
Hmm.
And he acquires the rights during Snow White, which came out in 37, because this thing couldn't come out in 36. Snow White comes out in 37.
Mhm.
He gets the rights, and then his Pinocchio comes out in 40. And there was something that
Okay.
I saw that said maybe in the contract with what was going on, the Italian filmmakers who did The Adventures of Pinocchio were given a big sum, but a part of that was destroying the film. So
Huh.
that's a, uh, a
Oh my
myth or a
god.
thought that it's like, yeah, because he doesn't want anything
Oh
else.
my gosh. That they did it on, yeah.
Well, because it went into public domain in 40, the same year that Pinocchio came out. So,
Oh
that's
my
interesting also.
gosh. That is interesting. Got a conspiracy
Yeah.
here. The Pinocchio conspiracy.
Yeah, exactly. The other myth or thought is that instead of it being destroyed, that Disney just has the negative somewhere forever and stole their ideas or used, "Oh, that works for this sequence,"
Oh yeah, it's lost. Yeah, no, that's
Uh,
gone.
yeah.
It's just sitting somewhere.
And nobody will ever see it. So, that
Wow.
that it did have an iteration.
I'm loving there's some question just even that there's any question at all. It's like, well, did Disney put the kibosh on another version so that theirs could be successful? That's hilarious. And I like to think of the cartoonish version of Walt Disney that's making this happen behind the scenes
Yeah.
because it's fun.
He flies to Italy, yeah.
Yeah.
Right before World War
But
II, yeah. Just
it feels like it belongs in the Roger Rabbit like universe. Like that happened in the Roger Rabbit
Mhm.
canon.
Of yeah, of what happens with, well, yeah, it is. I mean, it is the thing too where it's like we say, "Oh, Disney, this is Pinocchio. He's the impish, but not really, just mostly naive kid, and he looks like a boy except for the joints that are made of wood." But that's not how most people would have known him. I wanna show I'll put the link in the show notes,
Yes.
but, I sent Evan a picture here, which everyone can look at as well,
Mhm.
of this Pinocchio. Does this look familiar at all?
Oh my god, incredibly.
It is,
I'm waiting with bated breath. What I'm
yeah.
looking at looks like what, having no context at all, this is straight this might as well be concept art for Guillermo's version.
What you're looking at is illustration from a 2002 version of Pinocchio with illustrations by this
Hmm.
guy, Grizz Grimley, which I don't know if that's a pen name or not, but it sounds like it.
Grizz Grimly.
Grimley. And so
It's a fantastic name.
this was his idea, his take on it, and he's gonna direct this film based on his
Okay.
his his renderings. It's 1 to 1. Del Toro
Oh my
sla
gosh.
is
Yeah.
on it. He's gonna produce.
Okay.
This wasn't gonna be his thing, but then things get shifted around. He takes it over. It goes into development hell, and 14 years later, it's all his baby. But I didn't
Wow.
realize that it's
Oh
like,
my
oh, it's
gosh.
based on Pinocchio. No, it's also based on a very specific Pinocchio and
Yeah.
the interpretation
So what
of
happened
it.
to Grizz?
I think he just was working on other stuff. Oh, he did a, Hocus Pocus book. That was the most recent one that came out.
Oh,
His
okay. So
illustrated
Grizz
version of
goes on
Hocus
to do
Pocus.
some hocus pocus work.
Yeah, I mean, he's done
Very good.
Frankenstein, Edgar
Okay.
Allan Poe. It's like he's a
So they know him. They know
yeah.
him. We know Grizz. Yeah, we know Grizz.
Oh, yeah, yeah, he's fine.
No,
Uh,
this is fantastic. This artwork is absolutely beautiful. And if this was dated 2003, man, they did not change a beat. There's even
yeah.
story. There's some story beat in here that I'm just like, man, okay. They kept that the way it was. This is
Yeah.
beautiful. It's fantastic. And to pull out, looking at this version, looking at Guillermo's version, and looking when you, it's so different. But
Yeah.
that's again to say the Disney version is just the Disney version. The Disney version is not all Pinocchio. It's actually not even the biggest Pinocchio. That's crazy to me. It's absolutely crazy to me. But it's interesting then to be able to really have all of these different elements, this very different interpretation of the character visually,
Mhm.
and then all of these story beats that didn't make it into the Disney version that got so popularized. To then get a fully formed, beautiful, gorgeous version at this level with this different interpretation. I was thinking about looking at the two versions and how much the Disney version is exactly like the cartoon, and then
Yeah.
Guillermo's is very, very different, but it's also very the same too. So if I had to break it down, it's as much the same as it is different, which is really interesting to me
Yeah.
because you can only change it so much, but they really do. They really change it, but at the heart, it's very, very much the same. A lot of very much some of the very same things happen, but you
Yeah.
really get a very different, a dynamic look at this thing, going to some very different places.
Why
I
yeah.
was it was quite the journey to compare these two, because there's so much to go on that I'm just when I think Pinocchio, I think the Disney Pinocchio, and that's all there is to go on. I'm like, no, 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 there's so much more to go on, and in fact, this Guillermo version isn't just him like, well, this is what I would. It's no, it's
Yeah.
actually well, it's been in the book.
And he probably left out 12 chapters to make it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God,
Yeah.
my God,
I do wanna throw out at the end here 2 other talking about different versions of Pinocchio.
please,
Disney did a live action one before this one, which nobody knows about.
really,
Uh,
really,
in 2000, it was also a musical, and it was called
oh,
Geppetto, and it was from the perspective
oh
of
no.
Geppetto, live action.
Yeah, huh.
Uh, Drew Carey is Geppetto,
Oh,
and,
no.
Julia Louise-Dreyfus.
Oh my gosh, I did not remember this. I did not remember
Nobody
this at
does.
all.
Nobody does at all, but, it's out there. Interesting that but it they have to base it off of the thing that they made, so it's, like, essentially the Tom Hanks thing again, but just different scenes when Pinocchio's off doing other
But
things.
it
I
can't
don't know,
look
Geppetto's
like him. That's so
yeah,
weird.
yeah,
Oh, yes, I do, I do.
you see that,
Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
weird. So
I
Disney
How has Disney
kept
done this? How has Disney erased all other versions of this character in my mind? I've seen these images before. And for some reason it's like I've been gaslit into thinking that Pinocchio is always it's only a Disney character. That's the only version of it that exists, and everything else is the fake version.
Yeah, yeah.
This is so funny to me.
Yeah. There is, if you want some more laughs, the funniest version that I saw, which exists in its totality, was sort of lost, and then fans stitched it together,
No, no.
uh, redid the color correction, all that stuff. It's called Pinocchio in Outer Space. Came out in
Oh my god,
'65.
yes.
It is unhinged, but
Thank
also
you.
quite good in the sense of, like, it goes from A to B to C and makes sense, but he's contacted by a space alien turtle, and they go out and fight Astro the space whale and other adventures.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm
It's
seeing here a whole franchise on Pinocchio 3000 where he's in the
Oh,
future.
yeah.
um, he has several entries in his own canon and
Yeah,
timeline.
of
This is
going
fascinating.
here, there, and everywhere.
Oh
But they
my
still keep
gosh.
him a wooden boy for some reason. Yeah.
I'm just enjoying all of the different Pinocchios because we're going like, oh man, why would I want a different version Pinocchio? It's like, well, you're crazy because there's all been 1,000 different ones, and the Disney one was just one of them and kind of late to the game.
Yeah. Well, I was I was gonna say, in a bizarre hopefully this makes sense, we covered it already, and Guillermo, in a way, you know how the original it's like sort of a tragic take on Pinocchio. I feel like Nightmare Alley
Yes.
is his take. Stan is the tragic Pinocchio. He craves
Yes.
acceptance from
Yes.
his father, but spirals into violence and addiction
Yes. I'm
and
snapping.
becomes a creature instead of a
I
human.
love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's the reversal,
100%. You
so it's
got
like,
it. 100%.
"You've already done this,
You
Guillermo."
got it.
It's his themes, he loves
Oh,
it.
it's right up his alley.
Yeah.
Gosh, oh my gosh. Well, I'm just loving all the new fidelity I'm finding in this. Where I'm just like, now I'm not just comfortable with Guillermo's new version. I'm now comfortable with the idea that Disney's version is only one of many, and I mean many, many, many.
Many, many. Yeah.
Um, it takes, I don't know why it takes, but it certainly does. It takes a refresher in some of this stuff, because it's not as cemented as you think it is. Everything is in motion. This has been a delight to get a real refresher here and get out from underneath the loom and doom of the Disney all encompassing umbrella. Yeah, guys, go check out the new version. Check out any version of Pinocchio, and see what you might see in it, because good lord, there's plenty to pick from. Thank you guys for sticking with us this long. It means the world to us. Thank you, Taylor, for all the
Yeah,
research.
thank you.
Thank you, guys. Get in touch with us at illiteratepod@gmail.com. Until next week, we'll catch you right back here. Stay safe until then.
See you then.